I stood frozen on my front lawn, disbelief rooting me to the spot as thick bleach dripped down the sleeves of my charcoal suit, running in pale streaks that bubbled and faded the fabric before my eyes, the sharp smell of chemicals burning in my nose while the suit I had spent months saving for, a symbol of every sacrifice and ambition that helped me climb out of nothing, was being destroyed right in front of me, and across the lawn like she had just conquered a personal enemy, Karen Westfield. The self-appointed queen of Lakeside Estates, dressed in her usual pastel sweater and judgmental superiority, marched away gripping two empty bleach bottles like trophies, her face twisted with an anger that made her voice slice through the quiet afternoon air as she shouted, "This isn't Wall Street, you're not better than us." Her words echoed down the street, carried through the stillness as blinds parted and curtains shifted, neighbors peeking from behind glass with wide eyes, too afraid to intervene but eager to witness the spectacle of her finally exploding. My heart hammered against my ribs, my mind scrambling to process the reality that my morning had gone from hopeful to a nightmare in seconds. I had spent years clawing my way from nothing, one client at a time, one rejection at a time, building a business with sweat-soaked nights, 70-hour weeks, and determination that scraped my soul raw, and now I was being attacked on my own lawn for what, wearing a suit, looking like I was proud of myself. Only 3 months earlier I had signed the papers for this house, my house, a quiet home in a clean neighborhood that represented every mile I had walked to escape the life I was born into. The tree-lined streets and manicured lawns had promised peace, but perfection is a mask, and beneath the calm surface of Lakeside Estates lived Corinne Westfield, the HOA president who treated her title like royal blood. From the day I moved in, she watched me like a hawk stalking prey. Every morning when I left for work in one of the suits I had earned the right to wear, she stood across the street with her coffee mug, eyes narrowed, surveying me as though my existence offended her personally. 2 weeks after moving in, she approached me at the mailbox with a smile stretched so tight I could hear the strain in it, and she said with a voice dipped in sugar and bitterness, "Most people around here dress casually. Those fancy suits, they make it look like you think you're better than everyone else." I chuckled politely, thinking she was joking, explaining calmly that I worked with CEOs and investors. Wearing suits wasn't showing off, it was simply part of the job, but the smile on her lips didn't fade, its warmth did, and a cold, evaluating glint replaced it, like she had just confirmed a private suspicion about me. Within days, I started receiving absurd printed violation notices, accusing me of breaking dress code policies that didn't exist. I checked the bylaws myself, nothing even remotely related to personal clothing. Then came the anonymous complaint letters about my elitist appearance and disruptive energy. They weren't signed, but the hostile tone practically wore her perfume. Next, she began performing surprise property inspections that suspiciously always occurred the moment I stepped out to leave for work, nitpicking laughable things like claiming my grass exceeded regulation height by half an inch, or that my mailbox was 2 inches too wide, or that my garbage can had been visible for 15 minutes after pickup. Every bogus violation came with a fine, and every time I attended the HOA meetings I fought, I presented evidence, I won, and every victory only deepened the fury simmering behind her polite suburban smile. I tried patience, I tried compassion. My parents had raised me to take the high road, to meet hostility with grace, but people like Karen don't see grace as respect, they see it as weakness. Some neighbors pulled me aside now and then, warning me quietly that Karen had been tormenting residents for years. She fed on power, controlled the HOA like a puppet show, and used her husband's connections in town like a shield, but most kept their heads down, afraid to become her next target. One evening last week, as I backed out of my driveway, she stepped directly into my path like she owned the asphalt, slamming her hands on the hood and snarling that she was tired of me parading around like I owned the place, that nobody needed to wear suits in a middle-class neighborhood. I stayed calm, told her that HOA rules govern property, not clothing, but the fire blazing in her eyes said I had crossed a line she'd been waiting to strike from the moment she first saw me. Today was supposed to be one of the biggest days of my life. A high-stakes investor meeting, one that could expand my business nationally, weeks of preparation, sleepless nights optimizing every detail, and this morning, dressed in my brand-new navy suit tailored to perfection, briefcase in hand, confidence steady, I walked out my door ready to change my future. I didn't see her at first. She was lurking beside my car like a shadow waiting to pounce, clutching a spray bottle full of bleach, her voice trembling with rage as she hissed, "You just don't listen, do you?" I barely got out of questioning Karen what before she lunged, spraying the bleach across my chest and arms, the liquid soaking in as I gasped from the cold sting and chemical burn in the air. "Stop dressing like a CEO," she shrieked, shaking, her voice cracking from pure fury. "This is a middle-class neighborhood, not your stupid Wall Street runway." The bottle sputtered, empty drops spitting from the nozzle as she threw it to the ground and stormed off, leaving me dripping, stunned, my dream day dissolving into white acid stains spreading like deadly flowers across fabric I couldn't afford to replace. My meeting, The one chance I had to push my company to the next level was in less than an hour. I had no time to change, no backup suit, nothing. It wasn't just clothing she ruined, it was time, effort, and opportunity. Then I heard a voice. I got all of that on my security camera. I turned to see Mr. Chen, the gentle, quiet man from 2 houses down, standing on his driveway with his phone in hand, shaking his head. His doorbell cam had caught everything, every second, clear, undeniable proof. "She's gone too far," he said firmly, and something inside me snapped. For months I endured the harassment, swallowed anger, played nice, but this was assault. This was criminal. Enough was enough. I photographed the damage and called the police. As I waited, neighbors slowly emerged, hesitant at first, then offering support and statements. Turns out I wasn't the only one she'd targeted. Anyone she considered beneath her or different had suffered, just not as violently. Mr. Chen sent me the video. I contacted the investors. Explained through clenched teeth what had happened, sent a picture of the ruined suit, and to my relief they were gracious and rescheduled. 20 minutes later, 2 officers arrived, watched the video, and one muttered, "That's assault, plain and simple." They headed to Karen's house immediately. Through my window I saw her packing, gesturing wildly, her voice raised, panicked. At one point she pointed dramatically toward my home, shouting something that made the officers' faces turn stern and cold. When they returned, one officer sighed, almost in disbelief. "She says it was a misunderstanding," he said, "that she was trying to help you remove a stain." I laughed bitterly. "You saw the footage," I reminded him. "We did," he confirmed, "and that was all I needed." I pressed charges: assault, property destruction, harassment. Minutes later they returned to her door, and this time there was no discussion, only handcuffs. The street fell silent as Karen Westfield, tyrant of the HOA, was walked down her driveway, wrists bound, her face pale with shock, as though consequences were something foreign, something that only applied to others. She stared at me like I had betrayed her, like she was the victim. Neighbors stepped onto their lawns, whispering, some stunned but many relieved. You could feel it, the entire community exhaling years of fear. 3 weeks later I sat in the courtroom as Karen took her place at the defendant's table, stripped of her false confidence, looking small and cornered. Her excuses fell apart immediately. The judge reviewed the footage, heard the testimonies, and saw through every lie. He found her guilty of assault, malicious property damage, and harassment. Sentence: 6 months probation, $1,500 restitution to replace the suit, 100 hours community service, and a restraining order barring her from coming near me or my property. And the final blow: the HOA board, the same one she ruled like a tyrant, voted unanimously to remove her as president. When the verdict was read, her face crumpled and she cried out that she was protecting the neighborhood's values, but not a single person defended her. Years of bullying, control, fines, fear, all undone in a moment of truth she never thought would come. As the bailiff led her away, head down, wrists cuffed, I stood in the corridor outside the courtroom and finally breathed. I had come here to build a better life, and for a while Karen tried to crush it beneath spite and envy, but in the end she only destroyed the illusion of her own power. The neighborhood she terrorized now stood free of her, and as I walked home that afternoon, suit ruined but dignity intact, I realized something important. Success isn't about the clothes you wear, it's about never letting someone like Karen take away the future you worked so hard to create.